Hey guys, what are
What's
you guys
up?
doing here? Oh, I
What's
guess
up?
we're doing a podcast, right?
For
Sorry,
once, yes.
sorry, it's been 2 months, guys, but we're back and we are ready to talk about the topic we wanted to talk about last time, which was our jobs. So today's stream is JobCast.
JobCast. Oh, I'm getting tagged in things. Get all these out of here. Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about like what we do. Is it what we set out to do originally, or whatnot, and what our plans for the future are, maybe if we have time.
Like what we plan to do out of college, or like as kids.
That's a good question.
Whatever is applicable for the
Way
question.
too bright still.
Okay. Let's put you on the spotlight, Wombat.
Me? I
Yep.
usually go last.
No, we're gonna switch it up, man. This is 2020.
Ooh,
Ooh,
it is 2020.
ooh la la.
Unless you need time to think, Wombat. If you need time, I understand.
I don't need time to think. I guess I can be the example, the guinea pig. Big science time, that's right. Not for me though, for Kirby. So I went to school to be an art teacher. Got a degree in art education. Some of you guys know that probably. And I got out of school when the job market was crashing in 2009. Well, it had already crashed. It was 2008, right? And I was just working like 5 part-time jobs. I needed benefits, so I found security. And I kind of stuck with security for a while and ended up making it into a career. So I've been doing security for almost 11 years now. And I started off as just like a normal security guard. I patrolled buildings. I sat in lobbies, greeted people, and checked people in. Then I got promoted into a dispatching role, meaning like I would take calls and dispatch emergencies and use the radio a lot. And
Was that in the police department, or?
no, just for the campus that I was on.
Oh, okay.
I actually used to work for Vanguard Investments, if you guys invest with them at all.
I think I've heard of them. I think they just built a couple of new things here in town, actually.
Oh, really? Interesting. Yeah, we
Yeah,
have
starting to spread the
Vanguard had like has like places all over the world, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
So that was pretty big. And there's a lot of officers at that site, so I ended up starting being a supervisor there, and then I actually became the training manager at that site. So I was like training officers in how to do the job. So not only did I like know security at that point, but like I also like taught people how to do it, which is weird to me because like I started security with no security experience whatsoever, right? Like I just like, it was just a job.
So like, what is it you teach per se? Like how to patrol, what to check for, who to look for?
Yeah, and then like also like customer service stuff, because you know we're not bouncers, we're more like concierges with emergency response training. So training people on like emergencies and looking for things out of the ordinary and knowing when to call and when not to call and all that stuff. Yeah.
Did your education as a teacher help get you that position?
Yeah, I would say so. I think one of the benefits of how I do my work is like I'm either doing something or I'm not, right? If I can't be passionate about something, I won't do it.
Right.
So like I had to commit to the job, and like it ended up working out in my favor because I'm actually using my degree to teach, right? And I think they saw like that, like what I tell people when I'm training, actually, I talk about commitment a little bit, and I say like, if I had gone into the job bitter about not having a teaching job, and I probably wouldn't be in security anymore, right? Because like I'd see myself out of a job one way or the other, and it's not like I was the best security officer in the world. It's more so the fact that when I went to work, I did what I needed to do. Like I did things that even if I knew I would get caught if I didn't do them, I still did them, and like they recognized that and allowed me to. They invested in me because I invested in them.
Right.
So like eventually I stopped. I actually stopped being a trainer there because I got offered a position as an account manager, which is basically meaning like I had my own account that I ran myself. And that's when I was at General Motors. I think you guys, we were doing the podcast by then.
Mm-hmm.
We were.
And that was really, really stressful. It was a lot of work. And I ended up getting offered a position to be a training manager at University of Penn, which is where I am now. And again, my teaching degree probably helped with that. And that's where I've been. So at Penn, I do much the same as when I was at Vanguard. But except with more students. We have 850 people on that campus that are in security. So it's a lot of work. But yeah, I train, I create trainings, I train people on CPR, management of aggressive behavior, so like some self-defense course stuff.
So Kirby's always aggressive to me. Is there anything you could tell him?
That's bullshit. You're aggressive. You're a bully to me. I'm in stream. I'm being nice.
This is Exhibit A. So
yeah. So the first thing I'd like to say is that Trell, if you'd like to stop aggression, the first thing you need to do is de-escalate, not escalate, and that's all you do. So
He over here threatened me yesterday, telling me if I'm not going to give him my PS5, I can't come visit in a month. He just said, "Don't even bother showing up if you're not giving me your PS5."
I know what you're talking about.
Come on.
that's fine.
What did you say? You got me Batman for Christmas or something? Like, what is that? What do you mean you got me Batman?
I'm just gonna drink my coffee now.
That's psychologically abusive.
So that's the first thing I would say.
Trell, stop gaslighting Kirby. So, okay, has 2020 been any more work for you in your line of career?
Yeah. So I can't train in person, so I have had to either stop or seriously modify a lot of my trainings because I'm really good in-person teacher. Like I'm very hands-on and class participation and stuff like that. And I can't really do any of that in a video conference, right? So
right.
It was actually about 6 months of this year. So far, it's probably going to be 9 months out of this year at this point. I have not been able to instruct at all. So it's mainly been preparing trainings or converting trainings into things that people can take online without having to interact with a professor, which is weird. Or like trying to get our numbers up compliance-wise in other areas that we aren't. Or train like the managers on how to do things and stuff like that, and support the managers during this time when they're low on resources and stuff.
Right.
So, because I think the most interesting part of my job is like I don't really have anyone under me, but I don't really have many over me either. It's more like a support role.
Hang out.
Like I basically I'm in charge of training for everyone. So like supervisors, managers, and officers, like they're all like people I'm responsible for training. But like it's dependent on what they need, and I have to figure out what they need and then do it. So there's a lot of like independence there. And I'm actually working on making a program where like I have people that I train that train under me. So like I have like a staff or a group.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like my proposal that I've been working on for next year, is having a training group to help me support this role, because there's so much and I can't do it all myself.
Right. So, like, is there any need for you to train anyone in like gun permits or anything like that, or
so I
weapons?
don't train in Act 235 myself, which is what concealed permit to carry on the job. Oh, you got a sneaky boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't train that myself, but I have supported that in the past. I've gone to gun ranges and I helped observe and like helped teach it with other people, but I'm not a certified trainer for Act 235.
Okay, gotcha.
And I don't really want to be. I need to invest in a lot more stuff for that. I don't actually have my Act 235 myself at this point. I have pretty much
like,
all the other training that you could think of in that, but like not it itself.
Because this is all in-house training for University of Penn, right? So they don't require gun permits or gun license.
Pretty much all of Allied Universal, which is the company I work for, we don't do whatchamacallit, armed guards.
Okay.
But Penn has its own police force, so we work with them.
Oh,
it's
okay.
actually one of the largest police forces in the country. Private police forces. It's the second largest, I think.
Do you
So
know
that
what
works,
first
then.
is? Because now I'm just curious.
I don't, but it's
Okay.
it's number one in PA, so that's all I care about.
Nice. Yeah, that's fair.
Our security program's actually been ranked number one 13 years in a row. So like other universities actually like look to us to model their security and police stuff. So it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So how was election time for University of Penn? Was that a little wilder, or?
I can't really go into specifics, but we were definitely on
Alert?
on alert. Yeah,
Okay.
we had extra coverage and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We were equipped and ready to deal with whatever came.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like it was crazy probably throughout the country, but definitely in PA it was a little wilder.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like just before the election, we had the officer shoot another individual in the city who was having a mental health issue, like really close to our campus. So we were dealing with a lot of that too. Yeah. But ultimately, a lot of my job is just preparing people for like looking for things out of the ordinary or dealing with an emergency in the moment. And it's really hard to like train somebody in an emergency situation, because like emergencies are never the same. Like it's never going to be exactly this every time, right? So like the strategy I do is I teach people the options that they have and like a general sense of what they can do, so that in the moment they can decide with confidence what they can do. So like just for example, an active shooter situation which happens, I'm never going to tell you always do this, right? Because it could always be something different. So like run, hide, fight is like the training, which is like if you can run, if you can't run, hide. If you can't do either, because like say the threat's right in front of you, then the only option you have is the fight. But you don't want to just like go Superman and go search out the person who's shooting and like make fight your first option. You want to make it an option for sure. But so like, you know, that's just one example of like, and like obviously it's a little bit more training than that, but like yeah, it's interesting. Would I say that I'm happy I'm in security? I would say it's fine. It's not like my favorite thing, but like it's what gets me paid and stuff like that.
Sure.
If I could find a job that made me happier at the same pay rate, then I'd probably jump for that, but I haven't found that. So
Would teaching art actually be equivalent to that? Do you know?
never.
Never. Not even as like a professor in the
No,
university.
professors get paid almost as badly as teachers in public school.
Dude, that sucks.
Do they really? I'm gonna look up U of M. I'm curious.
I've never looked into it, so I never knew how much they
It
got
depends
paid.
on what the school is, but for the most part, yeah.
Jeez. So I mean, that's a huge influence right there. Is definitely pay. You know. I mean, like it's for me. I think I would probably always go for the money, just because you know sometimes you gotta
Yeah.
support if you're supporting people. I mean, like the benefits that I get from work, or the pay I get. And then supporting 2 kids in Kayla. And two cats, one of which likes to take dumps everywhere. So I pay for you to take dumps on the floor.
Right.
You're welcome. And yeah, sometimes you just gotta equate all that before you make decisions and
Right.
quote unquote be selfish.
I mean, and like some schools, like for example, Penn probably pays bank for their teachers, but it's also an Ivy League school.
Yeah, I was looking up
and-
U of M. Their art school, the average professor salary is like 80 to 90 or so. I don't
Oh
know.
wow.
I'm not looking for anywhere else, but like U of M, because it's public, you can just look up anyone's salary. So I'm just looking
Right.
up all the art professors now.
The
So
other
now-
thing is there's
Mom is gonna move to Michigan now.
the investment of you need at least a graduate, sometimes even a doctorate to be a professor.
Oh yeah,
usually.
at U of M for sure, you need a doctorate.
So
For
like,
art?
Yeah, even for art,
Yeah, even for art.
you have to have a PhD.
I guess every professor is always doctored though, right? No, I
Doctor.
thought master's was.
No, masters is sometimes like
Yeah.
masters is the bare minimum, right?
Right.
So.
So Kirby's gonna
and-
just become a teacher then.
No, dude, I hate grading, and I don't want to deal with flying for funny. I'll save my points on that, but no, never.
But the other thing with that is like you need the experience, and like I haven't taught art really in years, so like even if I got my master's, like they're gonna be like we're gonna go with this guy because he teaches, right? So
Right. So I guess okay. So what was your bachelor's in?
art and education. I had a dual
Okay.
degree.
So I guess at that time, did you consider that you would have to go all the way for a doctorate just to get the teaching position that you wanted, or?
Well, I was anticipating teaching in public schools, and then I couldn't
Okay.
get any jobs because they cut the program.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's like 3,000 teachers in my area, all out of work because they cut the programs, and so they were all looking for the same jobs, and they had more experience than me. So,
Mm.
and most schools haven't recovered. They closed like tons of schools in this area. Like when I applied for schools to be a teacher, I applied to 375 schools,
Holy crap!
Jeez.
Oh my god.
and
It's kinda
I
like-
heard back from 4 of them, and they were all no.
Yeah.
I got
That's-
one interview, and I never heard back.
Damn, dude.
It kind of sounds like our buddy Nikos right now.
Yeah, it really does.
I know I feel that because like when I got my degree, like I sent out so many applications and I would never hear anything back. I'm like, these are actually going to people, right?
Right.
It's rough. It's rough.
They send them halfway to Siberia.
Yeah.
So who's next? I'm
No
gonna vote
preference.
Kirby because Trell just put cereal in his mouth.
All right, that sounds good. To start from the very beginning, as a kid, I thought, I'm gonna design video games. I like video games, and then at some point, I realized, well, crunch sucks. I'm not good enough at art to artistically design things. And no offense to Trell, I don't want to code all day. So I decided that's not gonna work. We're gonna pick something else. I'm like, well, science is cool. So we'll see how that kind of goes. And like, I wasn't selling it, but I just took more science classes when I had free electives in high school. So, what's up? Oh, what's up, Matt? How's it going?
Hey, Matt.
Anyway, oh, you should do it, Matt. You should do it. Yeah, make Diablo 5. Anyway, I just took more science classes. And I had a few really cool teachers in high school and professors in undergrad that I'm like, okay, yeah, this is some cool shit. And then I ended up just choosing chemistry because I was like, yeah, I like mixing chemicals and maybe I can make some cool bombs. No joke. I'm like, I'm gonna make things that blow up, so we're gonna try it. That sounds sweet.
Wow.
That was high school Quentin's mind. So I was like, yeah,
Terrorist Kirby.
I'm like, we're gonna make some cool bombs. It didn't pan out, but anyway, in undergrad, then I started doing undergraduate research since it's more or less seemed like it was a requirement for any school where if you want to graduate with a BS and really any scientific field, but specifically chemistry too, you have to at least do one semester of research. So I did some research there. I'm like, okay, this is pretty sick, and I like it a lot. Anyway, now I pretend to be a chemist, but I don't really do that much chemistry. And I'll talk about what I actually do. Let's talk about microscopes. Let's talk about zooming in on pictures and finding cool stuff, because that's what I do really. You guys all know what optical microscopes look like. Those are the ones you think about when you put your eyes to the thing and you focus it and you're looking at like cells and stuff. And those are cool. Those are fair, but that's not what I use. You know, my boy Matt's in here, so he knows all about the SEMs, but I use electron microscopes. So in an optical microscope, you use light. So light goes in, you focus it, and you can see cool things. In an electron microscope, it's the same principle, except for you use electrons, so the things that make electricity work. The reason being is that they're smaller, their wavelength is shorter, which just means you can see smaller things. It's like using a smaller tool, if you want to think of it that way. So I'm going to post 2 links in chat. One is an SEM. The first one's SEM. I should have labeled them, but I didn't. The second one's a TEM. They don't look like microscopes at all, but I just want to give people an idea of the sort of microscopes, or when I say microscope, this is what I'm referring to. These big, bulky instruments that generally have a room dedicated to them. And it's not something, obviously, you'll see when you look at it where my face is shoved up against 2 lenses. I'm focusing it there. It's all done on a computer, which is the third image that kind of shows what the workstation looks like. So on the lower left monitor, that's sort of the image that you see where there's all these controls and you can see an image of whatever you're looking at. The upper left just shows what's actually happening inside the microscope, so you don't crash into anything when you're moving the sample around because you can't see it directly in front of you like with a regular microscope. Then the lower right, not super important or cool, but it makes pretty colors and it just tells you what chemicals are in there, but I don't want to get into that. So with these microscopes...
Oh, like Spider-Man style.
Yeah, exactly. And you can say you have to guess the chemical name when you match up the colors, and then I always get stuck. I got to get Trell in there, man. I'm always stuck. I'm like, I don't know what this is.
The left monitor looks like a geological map, like a Google Earth map.
It's funny. This is actually in the geology building, so it's funny you say that. But
that's funny.
First off, this is Windows 7.
Don't get me started. I hate that they use Windows 7, bro. They're all like Windows 7 or no shit. One of them is Windows Vista, and I'm about to like shoot that computer. Only one of them is Windows 10. All these, they have like these multi-$100,000 to $1 million like instruments, and then they have these cheap ass computers that were made 17 years ago. I'd rather use your Dyno. I'm like, dude, these computers suck anyway. I know.
Is this your workstation?
This is the main one, yeah. They actually won't let these computers talk to the internet because, you know, Windows 7 isn't supported for security anymore. So not pictured
Smart not to.
is a computer on the right that's connected to Windows 10. So you move all your data from the Windows 7 to the Windows 10 one, and then you can, that one's talking to the internet if you want. But dude, it's fucking dumbass. I know. This is my main workstation, yeah. When I am
3 monitors, stuff. Nice.
There's 2 more on the right. You just can't see them, but yeah.
Whoa.
And so these... For my research, you know, I'll get into that in a second, but let's talk about the cool stuff. Let's talk about cool pictures. So I'm gonna post 3 more pictures. They're about bees. They are pictures of bees under an electron microscope. So this will help give you a scale of things because if I show my research first, it can be hard to appreciate the scale. So you all know I should say a wasp. You all know what a wasp looks like. I didn't kill him. I found him in a windowsill. I didn't do it. That's why it's all kind of dirty. The first one is his face. The second one is a hair. And then the third one is going to be a close-up of his eyeball. And in the lower left of each picture, there will be like a scale bar with a number. Like in the first one, it says 200 mu, the Greek letter mu m. Those are micrometers. If you really care about the scale, that's 0.2 millimeters. So it's 1,000 micrometers is 1 millimeter. But anyway, so whenever I'm bored and I find a cool bug or something lying around, I just throw him in the microscope because I want to see what he looks like. And Aaron actually sent me both of her tarantulas. So I got these tarantulas. I'm going to look at 2. I'm going to find their fangs. I want them by now, but I don't have them. But anyway, Yeah, so looking at cool stuff under the microscope.
She
And I
sent
was
you live tarantulas?
no molt. So like her tarantula is molted, so I
Oh,
have
molt.
like molt.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, no, not her live. I would, dude, I'd be playing with them, but yeah, the molt. So I'm gonna look at those in a second. But yeah, so you get these really cool looking images of these things. And one more thing before I get into actual research is whenever you're looking at something with an electron microscope, because you're essentially looking at it with electricity, it has to be conductive. So if you throw like plastic in there, all the electrons bounce away from it and your image looks like dog poop. So you actually coat these things in gold, which this new picture doesn't really show anything. Oh wait, let me see what Matt's posting here. Oh yeah, you're looking at what's 500. These are some nanoparticles, I assume, Matt. I don't know what they're made of, but they look pretty sweet. Like 200, 100 nanometers. I like that. I should have posted mine too. But anyway, the most recent one I posted is just a picture of you use this like gold plasma coater to sputter gold onto your sample to make it more conductive.
So
Anyway,
you threw gold on a dead wasp.
yep, I literally coated it in like a quarter of a millimeter gold because that's what we do here.
Do you have to trace any of that, log any of that, or?
Yes, I do. However, I'm allowed to more or less do whatever I want if I classify it under what's it, calibrating the microscope. So I always wait. Like if the microscope goes down, or if I change out what we call the filament, which is essentially like a light bulb filament that shoots electrons out, I can put anything I want in there to recalibrate it. And so I always wait until I have to do that to throw my cool stuff in there. And then it's like, okay. Then I've shown my boss, he's like, you did that? I'm like, yeah, but I had to calibrate. He's like, all right. I'm like, cool. So
nice. As I was like, gold is not cheap, so I was like, I wonder how you're able to do that. But
I got to make sure it's calibrated.
You got to. It makes sense to me. Really, it's just You're just being responsible.
Exactly. And then I guess to bring it to things that actually matter, to show, like, give you an idea of what I actually do and look at. This most recent one is a picture of what we call a macroporous film, which just means it's porous, but there's big pores, so they're not small pores. And so someone gave me this sample, and
hence the macro.
Was like, what was that?
Hence the macro.
Hence the macro, exactly. So someone gave me this sample that at first it was like a thick film, and they etched it with some acid to make these pores, to make this cool little structure that you see there. My job is to figure out, one, how deep do the pores go? And so using the scale bar at the bottom, if I remember correctly, ends up being like 30 or 40 microns. Not really important. And then sort of seeing, you can see there's like holes in the film, so classifying, like characterizing what the pore structure and what the holes are like, just letting them know pretty much this is what your sample is. So that's what I use an SEM for. The TEM,
they created the sample and they knew what it was made of and how they made it, but then they asked you to repeat to them, what did I do?
They want to know, what does it look like? Yeah, like, so on the micro scale, you know, what, like, they know what the material is. They don't always, though. Sometimes they don't know what the material is. So I have to tell them, okay, this is chemically what it is. But most of the time, it's structurally, this is what you actually did. Because they know they etched it, but they didn't know how deep did the pores go, for example, how big are the pores,
Gotcha.
Stuff like that.
That makes sense. I thought they were just trying to give you like Silent Hill puzzles, like, now reverse what I did. Tell me what I did.
Tell me what I did. What did I do? And then lastly, for the TEM, which is like a stronger SCM if you want to think about it that way. The pictures don't look as pretty. In that first one, someone grew a film on a film. I look at a lot of films. So you can see there's a film on the bottom, then they grew a less smooth film on top. But what I think is cool, and the picture doesn't look very cool, but what I think is cool is if you zoom really, really closely in on that and look at the second one, all the small dots that you see all over the place are actually atoms. So you're looking at literal atoms on the surface or in this film now, and I just think that's cool as shit. And based on their ordering, you can kind of tell if we call it epitaxial, which just means it's the same structure. So because the dots above, like the dividing line in the middle, have the same sort of pattern as the dots below it, it shares the same structure. So I can do that kind of stuff. And I just think looking at atoms is cool as shit. Even if it visually isn't that sweet, being able to know conceptually what you're looking at is pretty fun, in my opinion.
So with 100 nanometers, right? Is that what NM is?
Yeah, so NM is nanometer. And then
okay,
so in the second image, the scale bar is 20 nanometers.
It's 20 nanometers. Okay.
So if you say you have NDE, this is sort of the scale that we're looking at, is like somewhere on the second picture. I'm trying to find NDE, and that's kind of how you look there. So
right. So the first one kind of reminds me of like looking at the Rocky Mountains from the plains.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
With like some towns at the base of the mountains. And then the second one, it makes me think of like fabric almost. You know? Like the atoms look like a fabric.
I can't say I've ever thought of it that way, but if I didn't know what I was looking at, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, it looks like nylon. right? Or like
Yeah,
some.
yeah, it does. It's kind of cool. Anyway,
Look at me,
that more or less.
visualizing. Look at me visualizing things into like. Yeah.
He's trying to turn this into art rather than
Right,
science.
right.
Honestly, I try to make my pictures look cool. I showed some other fun pictures before. Like I think I've shown before. I found this thing that looked like a piranha plant. I don't know where he went. If I find it, I'll post it. But essentially, that's what I do. It's called more or less. My degree will be in chemistry, but really, I do materials chemistry and I characterize things. So people just send me their samples and I say, "This is what you have." Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes they have trash samples, and sometimes they have good samples. But it's always fun.
So what kind of career does this have ahead of you?
That's a great question. So there are really three things I could do. If I stay in academia, I'm not being a professor. So I could work at a university's characterization department. So all these places I go to use these instruments, they have people called just like either microscopy specialists or lab managers or something like that, where they oversee 1 to 3 normally instruments. They train users on them. They help collect data if someone is like new and they don't know what they're doing, and they repair them obviously if that gets broken. So that's option 1. Option 2 is working in industry, so working at a company like Intel, or there's another company called Micron or Dow or something like that. Pretty much they all have these characterization departments where they want to know what materials are we making. That's option 2. Then option 3 is working in a national lab, something like Argonne in Illinois, for example, where it's just it's really a government position because it's a national job, but it's still the same sort of thing. I do characterization there, and so that'd be kind of cool. At first I wasn't super excited about it because before you get a real job, I say real job in quotes, you have to do what's called a postdoc, which is just you have your doctorate degree and now you do some more stuff before you get a real job, where it's kind of like contract work where they hire you for a year or 2 contract, and then if you do well enough you get fully hired on. And then
okay.
so you don't make as much. Like if I did that route, I wouldn't make as much immediately being a postdoc as I would if I went to like industry, for example. But
Really?
if and when I got go ahead.
I said really. That's
Yeah. So then once you get fully hired, then I would make a bit more that I'd make in industry, and then they have you get great benefits because it's a government job, and then you more or less they don't let you work more than like 7 or 8 hours a day because they're really strict on the hours. So that would be a nicer benefit. So we'll see how it pans out, but those are sort of the 3 pathways that I'm looking at.
It's like as for at least in my career field, being a contractor, you always make more money than you would if you were actually a full-time job.
Oh,
because
really?
They're not paying you benefits or anything like that, so you just get more cash up front.
Well, they do still pay you benefit as a postdoc. You do still get benefits, so maybe that's why. But because you do get less overall, like, yeah. So I don't know how much less. I think most industry jobs start out around like 100 to 110 in that range, and then if you're a postdoc, it ends up being more like 85 around there. So it's not like a huge difference, but
right. Okay.
Oh, Umbrella Corp wants workers. Oh man, I'm not really into pharmaceuticals.
You should go into Umbrella Corp though. But you could be looking at all the freaky monsters under the microscope and see.
Let me put you. I'm gonna need to see these monsters. I'm gonna put lickers under there. Let me see that tongue.
Oh my god.
Anyway, that wraps up for me, Trellis. I think it's time you get the floor.
I don't know how I'm gonna follow that. You had images and stuff.
You know it. I mean, all I do all day is look at pictures. So I'm like, I gotta have pictures to show off.
So when we like throw you pictures in Discord and you're like zooming in on things, you're literally just feeding your
my
job.
I'm just zooming in on like what's going on here, And then Matt's always nice and posts like 4K pictures, so I'm zooming in all over the place.
You can see the atoms on Matt's pictures.
I'm looking at the atoms. I'm looking at the pixels in his TV screen. I'm all in there like what's happening. I'll honestly a lot of times I try and look for reflections and seeing what's going on in the background, but that's
not at all
creepy. Move I look for. I just want what's going on. I'm curious.
So I guess I can say I did not start off by wanting to do coding. I kind of just fell into that. But I started off actually going back to like kids. I wanted to be a professional soccer player. That was my dream. But obviously that's probably only like a special breed that ever fall into that position. So it was fun playing soccer, but then when it came time to actually going out of high school, I thought I was going to actually become like a trade or something, like electrician or a plumber or something. But being overseas with my dad and stationed at the military bases, it was kind of hard to find things without like just jumping out. And I was thinking I was probably just going to move back to Britain and maybe just like go to a trade school or something like that. But being lazy too. My dad was like, "Why don't you just try like a couple college classes?" And I was like, "Fine, whatever." And then it's just like, "Okay, let me just do a couple more." Okay, and eventually it was like, "Okay, I've done this far. Let me just go ahead and finish this thing out, I guess, right? Why not?" And I think at one point I thought I was going to do like a philosophy major, but then I also realized that I hate teaching and I don't want to teach people.
Yes.
It's like, no, I don't. And then also, like, as much as I enjoyed philosophy, I also realized that you never get anywhere because, I mean, at the end of the day, everyone has their own opinions and no one's going to come to a conclusion that fixes things. So it's all subjective, not objective. So I was like, okay, let's just move forward. And I do like computers and see what I can do there. And then eventually I just fell into coding. So, just got a degree in computer science and I was still working retail when I left college, and I was applying to a bunch of different places. Never heard any responses until I finally heard back from my interview at Dell, and luckily the other person that I was up against had a criminal record, so I was able to actually get my foot in the door. So I'm so glad she screwed up her life and gave me a chance at mine. And then from there I just kind of kept moving forward, different jobs and stuff like that. And I felt like in the world of programming that you get better pay bumps by actually jumping to different jobs. Because like if you can't try to work your way up the ranks, and maybe that's not just applicable for coding, but it's probably applicable for a lot of different things. But and then there's also like, as much as so where I live, it's called Silicon Prairie.
I love it. That's hilarious.
Is the nickname for my town, and there's so many jobs out here for coding or anything IT related. So it's never been a fear that I couldn't get a job now that I do have experience. And there's been plenty of times where there's been like, I personally haven't been like laid off, but when I was at Dell, that's when they went from public to a private company again, and they started taking a lot of new directions. And so I could see the writing on the wall, and I was like, I need to jump ship. And I found another job pretty quickly, and of course it was a huge pay bump, and then I realized that Dell was paying me pennies. And so there's always like different fields or there's like two sides of the coin too. Like there's like the .NET and all the Microsoft stuff, or then there's the like kind of more open source stuff like Java and I don't know, a million other languages out there. So Dell was all .NET, and then actually in college I focused on Java. So then I found more Java shops, and from there I don't want to go back to .NET. Although in my current position, they know that I do some .NET, so they throw me some stuff from time to time, and I'm always like, oh,
they found you. Give it to him. He knows it.
But I do enjoy it though, because I like to keep I like to know both sides, just because I'm curious, and so I guess I kind of sign my own death wish there, because it's always like the older programs, they're like, oh, we wrote this in .NET, and it's like in technologies like that no longer are supported or something like that. So I'm like, because Microsoft is notorious for just trying out things and they never seem to work, and then they're like, they just keep moving on to new things, and it's like, well, aren't you going to support this? And they're like, no, they don't do not. That was in .NET 2.0 or in .NET 5 now, so yeah, whatever. It's like, oh, great. We're like, other languages like Java, they always have backwards compatibility and stuff like that, and it's just, dude, Microsoft. I could go on a whole rant about Microsoft, but anyways, so primarily my day consists of, I'll log on, I work on a team with many people, or at my current company we practice what's called safe agile. So I mean, like, there's like two main like methodologies of software development. There's usually like the waterfall methodology or the agile methodology, and waterfall is usually like of a dying breed. No one practices that anymore.
They've recommended not to go chasing waterfalls.
Exactly. Just stick to the rivers and lessons that you know. Okay. But waterfall is mainly, you would like meet forever, discuss the thing that you were going to code, and try to get it all buttoned up and shored up, and then like once all the contracts were signed and the ink was dried, then you would go code. And it never really worked out too well because there's always, as soon as you dig into things, you would find like there's caveats or whatever, and then you would have to like, wave a flag and say like, okay, this isn't going to work because of XYZ, and then they would have to go meet up again and sign more contracts, and it would just take so much longer to get it done. So then you have what's that agile methodology, where it's kind of like you break up the work into smaller chunks, and you get in there and you just try to like always shoot for like a minimum viable product. And a lot of times it can, as great as that sounds, you're like, yeah, why would you always ever want to do waterfall? Sometimes agile, you get in there, you don't even have like full on requirements, so you're just kind of like thinking what needs to be done, and it's people get lazy and don't fully vet out everything. So that was one of the good things about waterfall and one of the shortcomings of agile. So as good as agile may sound, there is a lot of shortcomings with it, but it's always a progress of trying to train people to make sure that they're being vigilant and looking forward and explaining as well as they can and stuff like that. So
But anyway,
no, go for it.
When you say you want a minimal viable product, to me that sounds like you want, and I don't want to this come off as like a bad way, but like you want the least work done on a product so that it's usable, and you want no more than that.
Correct.
Okay, and that's good.
Correct.
Okay.
Because you want to be able to just get something out the door, and then if you want to enhance it, go back and keep enhancing it. Otherwise, like there's been a lot of like case studies that I've read, because like a lot of what I do too is just constantly keeping in the know, not only like technology wise, like I'm always trying to read up on new technologies, and because there's always new things being added to new updates on like what is it, Java 15 I think is coming out now, is a new version. I think it's Java 15, but there's always new features to the programming language coming out, so you got to learn what they did. Like back in Java 8 they introduced streams and stuff like that, so that was a whole like thing that really changed Java. And then along with that, there's also these like a bunch of new frameworks out there that make life simpler. So like, why reinvent the wheel when this thing already does it, and it's like open source and community vetted and tested, and so just use that rather than trying to build your own tools. But yeah, shoot for the minimum viable product, and then like reiterate over it. Because going back to what I was saying, like I've read case studies where some people have talked about like as they were developing, they would notice like, oh, I could enhance it this way and do it this way. And then they would spend so long that all of a sudden it's been years and they had never pushed anything out the door physically, It's just like, well, why do that? Just get something out there and then it always, kind of improve it later on. So that's kind of what the agile methodology is, that it gives you a chance to also be agile about it. But, like that way you can always change and you can always pivot if things aren't going the way you want to do, because part of the agile methodology is like, so you work in sprints, rather than like in waterfall, it'd be like a whole long project that could consist of months or something like that. You usually work in sprints. So it's like you have, I think the industry standard, what they try to do, like at least, Google, Amazon, people like that, they set the industry standards. So they usually do like 2-week sprints where they just have like a bunch of some work they got to get done within 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, you usually do like a demo to your business stakeholders or whatever. We do 3 weeks at our current job, because 2 weeks is very aggressive.
That sounds kind of aggressive, but
it is. So we do 3 at ours, and we meet up every 3 weeks to plan the next 3 weeks worth of work. And then we set forth and we try to achieve it. And then at the end of the 3 weeks, we demo it, say like, look, here's what we built you. Are we on track? Is this useful for you? Get feedback from them, because you just want a tight feedback loop from your business stakeholders. That way you can make sure you're still staying on target and it's what they want. And usually that's where you get a lot of the input that was missing from like the original business requirements. You're like, this is what I built you. Is this going to work for you? And they're like, well, what about this scenario? You're like, you never mentioned that before. So now I'm going to have to go back and probably change a bunch of stuff. Great. So it's kind of like that. Just that tight feedback loop is where you really kind of draw a lot of the questions and requirements and stuff. So, but my day-to-day usually consists of, I'll just like log in. Since I work on a team of a bunch of people that I guess I was mentioning this before. We practice safe agile, which is more of like a someone just got on the agile thing and made like a framework for agile, but for big Fortune 500 companies. They're like, this is how Fortune 500 companies should do agile, and they like made like a whole program, and then like these big companies like kind of like pay a bunch of money to this place to basically like hire a bunch of people in and make sure that we're all working within like the rules set forward.
QA, right? Kind of.
Well, it's like they prescribe how, like, because there's like every time I've worked at a different place, everyone always does agile like their own way. Like there's always like a flavor to it. So this is just like a more corporate flavor to it that's just been branded and able to be sold to major corporations. Of like, there's a bunch of like it comes with it comes with training and everything of how you should be doing this agile thing. So then like they create it at a big corporate level over there. Now there's teams within teams. So I'm on a team that's called a car, and our car is on a train, and then our train is part of like this whole big ecosystem of trains. And so it's
is there someone called the conductor?
Yes, there is.
Yes. Good. I need that.
It's just a corporate way of doing it, and it's
I like it.
So so basically what we have is like on our train of work that we do, and I work on in the company I work for, we do a lot of like the retirement plans. So like I work with like annuities and 401ks and stuff like that, and I build a bunch of systems that kind of help people manage their 401ks and crap. So like my car I'll log in, I'll do code reviews for not only my car, but then for like people on my train. So I can kind of like even know of what all the different cars are working on. If any, I think code reviews help because sometimes like there can be like some silos where you don't know what this car over here is doing versus what I'm doing. But then you can see like through code reviews, like, oh, okay, that's something I might be able to utilize in this project or whatever. And plus not only through code reviews, but we do like try to have like train meetings amongst all the IT people and make sure that we're sharing the knowledge of like what we're building. Cause I've been in other trains within this company where it was kind of like completely siloed, and we would end up building our own thing where we didn't know that someone else built something similar that we could utilize and stuff like that. So the current train I'm on actually is really well at making like a whole cohesive effort thing. So I'll log in, I'll do code reviews, and those are always fun because you kind of just like go through and be like, hey, just clean this up, make sure you do this. Have you thought about this or something like that? I think one of the biggest things I found was like someone was creating state within multiple threads, and I was like, no, you can't do that. And that was a big effort where you had to like clean that up because with multiple threads coming into the code, and they'd all be resetting each other's state. And I was like, you should never set state within a multiple thread application. So, things like that. You just gotta, you get the more knowledge that you have, you'll pick up on things like that quicker and stuff like that. So I've learned a lot in code reviews. There's been a place I worked. It was actually right after I left Dell. It was at a place that now is owned by NTT, and they do a bunch of security. Because we wrote applications that would do like a bunch of the corporate scanning to make sure that you didn't have any vulnerabilities or something like that, and it's like, hey, your Apache system is out of date, you're gonna get hacked, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we had one of their bread and butter was this product that actually did log monitoring, so it was just like kind of what anything that was going on in the system, it would just log it and it would send those logs and aggregate those logs to us, and we could just like see any trends or anything going on. But we would get like 7 billion log lines from all over the world daily. And so during the code reviews, like we would get down to like the nitty gritty where like, if you could make this any faster, we were like fighting about it and make sure you did that, because if you put anything that just took a little bit too long, you could see the performance start to deteriorate a little bit, and crunching all those numbers. So you learned quite a bit of being a performant in that job, and I was appreciative of being there actually. So it was kind of fun. Just, and even if you guys probably have done like some basic coding where it's like string manipulation or something like that, or concatenation, and then you like index of this from here to here to get like the substring or something like that. And it's like, oh, you can do that way faster if you just jump from from this part of the string, or if you're looking for this part of the string, actually if you go from the back of the string to the middle rather than from the front to the middle, it's way faster. There was just like we would fight about it, and it was so good. It was like, oh man. So then after
none of that made sense to me, but cool.
When you were talking about strings and catenation, I felt it, and then you were talking about substrings. I was like, ooh la la.
I don't know what streams are, and I don't know what catenation is.
It's like text.
Yeah, strings are text basically.
Okay, yeah. So
then
I didn't
after code reviews, I'll just like go to whatever tickets I have assigned to me and then just start working on them. It can be anything from, so for me, it can be anything from VB, C#, JavaScript, Java. I think we might start looking into some things like R, or maybe more Python or something like that.
Python, baby.
I know.
Do it.
God. Because we have some languages. What's it called? It's like APL, which is a actuarial programming language, and we're trying to we don't want to support that anymore because it's a terrible programming language, and we don't know anything. Well, we're not supposed to know anything about it, but that is supposed to be a code that only our actuaries use, but they don't want to support it either. So we might look at stuff like R or Python to replace it, just because Python has like every library for everything. You could probably say like import calculator, and it would just do all the calculations for you. But so yeah, and then as part of our tickets, we on our car do some pretty good practices, and we try to always make sure that we are implementing the best practices out there. And sometimes it can be a bit overkill, but like for instance, there's things like BDD and TDD for behavioral driven development, and then test driven development, meaning before you even get out into like writing the code that actually is going to implement what you need to do. For TDD, you would just go ahead and you would write all the tests for the code, so you're writing code that's going to test your code. So you would write the test first, and of course right away it would fail, and you'd be like, good, there's a bad test. And then you would go ahead and you would write the code that actually makes the test complete successfully type thing. Yep. So it's a test driven style of development. You got something on that?
So that sounds very much like a variable and a constant in science experiments, right?
Yes. Yes.
Like
very much so.
You test something out. You're like, okay, this is the result when you don't do anything to it, and then you test it out with the variant, right? Right, Kirby? Yeah.
You have a control experiment, and then you have all. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Just yeah.
Yes, that is true.
So then BDD is kind of the same way, but you got, rather than having test drive be the driver, it's more of like behavior. So you start off with like what's the behavior of it or whatever. But so then not only that, but then so those usually come down to being what we call unit tests. So unit test is like where you mock out like fake data just in a local scope to make the code that you're trying to write work. So then you have unit tests, and then you want to go ahead and you want to implement integration tests. So integration tests are usually when you're like you're bringing up entire systems to kind of like hit each other and make sure that they're still working. And that can be like for an integration. So like a lot of what I write are microservices. So usually in this world you have everything broken up into microservices because you want to follow like a single responsibility principle, or an SRP. And so you want it like during an integration test, you'll bring up that entire little microservice. It'll come up and maybe it only has one purpose. Its one purpose is to like read something from the database and tell you like, hey, this is what's in the database. So then like a unit test would just be like, hey, when you receive this mock HTTP call, you actually go and you call upon this one service layer that goes and gets the database. Did that happen? And it's like, yeah, that happened. You're like, cool, okay, that didn't really test anything other than that like this front part layer can talk to a service layer. Okay. But then during an integration test, you would actually like bring up the microservice. You would send in a an actual HTTP call to it, and then you would go ahead and you would actually bring up like a dummy database, and you would actually like pull the record and then send it back out via HTTP and be like, did that happen? And then you're like, yeah, it happened. You're like, oh, cool. Okay, cool. So this actually works more so than you can, because sometimes like a unit test will pass, but it doesn't mean that the application does anything really. But other than just showing that there's connectivity in the code. So the integration test usually helps achieve that. Then there's some stuff we write called contract tests, where we'll, like during coding, like I'm building this spec of this microservice that comes up and shoots out a database record. But like other applications that use that actually call that thing via HTTP, what if I ever change the output and it looks different? Then it just breaks everybody's programs, right? So then they have a contract test to make sure that I don't break what the contract. I guess it always looks like it's something that will be usable to the people the clients that use this, right? So then we have to write those, and it just goes on. I swear that I write sometimes, like there's been times where I've written maybe 5 lines of code, but then like 100 lines of like tests. I'm like, this is ridiculous. but it's at the end of the day, it's supposed to automate. It's all about automating testing, so you don't have to, like, every time I make a little change, I then have to go to a QA to test it, and then go to a business person to sign off on it. Like, you want to get to the point where I can make the change and the whole company feels good about the automated test, where it's just like, yeah, we know that you have it, go ahead and push it to prod type thing, so that's kind of where it is. Huh. And the whole push to prod is like during like the code review process. Usually, like, you have like a master branch and a develop branch, and then you have like feature branches that come off of the develop branch. So you're always merging back to develop, and then sometimes you'll take develop and you'll merge it to master. Whenever that happens, that's usually when you're getting ready to push out to prod or something like that. And there's different methodologies of how you manage all of that. There's like Git flow and blah blah, blah. And I that could be a whole new talk, but basically, when you're ready to merge to master, that's probably when you're getting ready to either make a release candidate or something like that to push code out to prod. So yeah, fun stuff. So in a nutshell, I work with I just make tests all day just to test that I'm making good code.
Interesting.
So earlier when you said that you guys were doing a change from APL to like Python or R, how big of an undertaking is that? Because that seems like it would be a lot of work, but maybe there are shortcuts that I'm not thinking about.
It'd be huge.
Okay, that's why huge, big. That's what I thought. And how do you how long would it take if you even know? Like, how do you go about doing that?
So it would be what we use APL for at work is like this whole calculation of rates and stuff. It's like an engine almost. Okay. So it'd almost be replacing one engine with a different type of engine.
Okay.
And it would be a big undertaking just because that's a lot of like the secret sauce in some ways of like how some of the like the calculations happen on some of the annuities or like plans. I guess I'm trying to look for a general term for the plans.
Okay.
So it would be like replacing all that to make sure that it's doing what the actuarials would have to back in the day sit down with, I don't know, Excel spreadsheet, or I guess even before then by hand and crunch out the numbers type thing, and it's like it's just replacing all that happenings.
If you guys decide to swap over to Python or R, do you know like how soon that would happen? I'm just curious. Like,
I know there's
it's super far in the future.
There's talks of it happening, so it could happen as far. I wouldn't say it would happen anytime in 2021 because we have a lot of other. Okay. We got a lot of other things that we're trying to achieve at that point. I do think it needs to happen soon. So maybe end of 2021 as a possibility.
Okay. A year from now. So gotcha.
The problem with that is none of us are Python experts, but that doesn't, like, in our career field, it's, you always got to stay in the know. So if all of a sudden they just came to us saying like, hey, we're looking at Python, like, I don't think there'd be anyone on our team that would say no to that. We'd all be like, fine, we'll learn it. And there's been many times where I've had to do that, like, especially not just like languages themselves, but like frameworks. So like I know JavaScript, but there's like thousands of frameworks out there for JavaScript, and each one is like completely different. So like the main ones that you get now for writing websites are either React, Angular, or Vue, and those ones all three are different, but underneath it all is JavaScript. But like you'd have to learn not only the code JavaScript, but then the framework of how to implement the code, and each one is just a different style and flavor. So it can be you're always learning something.
Okay,
Basically.
that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I guess to continue on with this topic, how do our jobs relate? Right? Like I was kind of like drawing connections as Charles was talking to like experiments, right? Like how else do our jobs relate?
Sorry, I was busy memeing in chat. 12 runs tests and I run tests.
Yeah.
And then security, that's gonna make me think more critically. For art, if I just say art, because that's
Yeah.
you know what you obviously like to do. My pictures, I try and like I gotta frame, I gotta focus it well. There's a bit of art there, but to security now that's tricky.
Yeah.
I have to be safe in the lab. I have to wear my goggles, my proper PPE. I got to make sure I mix the right chemicals. You know, I got to be safe and I got to be secure. So,
I mean, one of the things I do teach is about PPE and also what chemicals are in buildings and what you should do if you interact with them.
There it is.
We have labs on campus.
Yep, I have labs on campus. You know.
Yeah.
I also do. I'm gonna put coding in quotes because really I just changed text in a Python programs, but it's not really coding. I just
you should write code that like automatically grabs it from your stuff for you, and then just like calculates it for you, so you don't even have to modify it.
Dude, I don't even know what's happening. I just like it says 0.1, maybe I should do 0.2, and then I see what happens when I hit run. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, Kirby, we should.
But like you said, they send me all their files via email. They just send me random .py files. I'm like, alrighty, I'm gonna download it.
Oh no!
Just got it. I don't know what's going on in here. Oh,
yeah.
But yeah.
I know when Trell was talking about like having people come in and like look at the stuff and then review it with him, that sounded very similar to critiquing in the art world, where like, you know, like for example, critiquing, I don't know if you guys have ever heard about critiques, but like basically what it is like in a classroom setting, for example, like everybody has the same project and they have their own take on it, right?
Yep.
So they present it and the rest of the class talks about what they like, what they don't like, and it's not like a let's rip this apart. It's you tell us what your vision is, and we tell you whether you've accomplished that in our opinion, and what you could do to further accomplish that, or where you succeeded in accomplishing that. So that kind of sounded similar, and I guess it's kind of like the same thing as any job, like with peer reviews and like and other things like that. But it just was like, oh, I know what that is.
So, like you're saying, like in your work of art, did you achieve these things that you were told to do? Is that what it is, or?
So, for example, say I'm given the task of creating, I don't know, painting a scene, like a landscape, for example. Basically, I have to explain what my thought process was behind it and what my intent was with the project and how I accomplished it, and then we talk about that, you know, and like people can like add things like I see what you did here, but like if you had given a little bit more darkness to the background of these trees, they'd have a lot more depth, you know,
right.
Or whatever. So it's so like that's a critique that it's like that's a thing that point out that you didn't do, but it's to help improve. And like I've taught, I actually have a whole like lesson on critiques, because you know if you're doing art, critiques can seem pretty daunting if it's like the first time you're doing them, because you know it could be viewed as kind of like tearing you down or whatever, or
That's a thing too.
putting thing under the microscope, right?
It's a thing with code reviews as well. Sometimes people don't take it well and they feel like they're being like picked on. And it's like, no, we're just trying to tell you what things you could do better. Doesn't mean you have to take them unless it's like blatantly obviously like this thing is going to break. Because like no, in our process we do like have a way of like blocking the code from being merged into like a developed branch, and like so it's a lot, it's an understanding that like if we say something but we don't like flag it, that we're just like offering our opinion, you don't have to take it. Otherwise, if we flag it, we're saying like, no, you can't merge it until you do this, because that's
fix this shit.
Yeah,
it's real. I like that.
Yeah. And I mean, like, part of it is also teaching people how to review, right? Like if I'm just saying this is trash, it's garbage, you should start over, you know, like that's not constructive criticism, right?
Right.
So, and it also discourages the person who's creating it. So like you have to, like, if you're going to be saying things like that, you have to do so in a constructive way. Or like if you have things that you're saying that are negative, also bring out some positive things too, like what they did well. Have that balance, because otherwise, yeah, you can feel attacked. And even still, like sometimes people don't take it well because, you know, not everybody likes being reviewed, right? But sometimes that's based on personality. So like teaching that, I have to like combat that kind of thing. And I guess unlike you guys, like I like to teach. I like learning things. So like Trell and Kirby, you guys learn a lot from what you do, like constantly, right?
I love learning things.
Me too.
That's one of the nice things about teaching, though, is that like I have to learn things in order to teach it, right? Like I wouldn't have been able to teach security had I not done all the jobs that I did within security. Like I had so many different roles within security that I was able to teach it, like I teach art, but I couldn't have just like picked that up like, oh, you have teaching experience, we want to hire you as a trainer, like without any security experience. That doesn't work out as well.
Right.
Which is why it's hard to like break into other like I guess fields without having worked it, because like how do I, like I'd have to do a lot of research in development in order to be able to train people on like say pharma stuff or whatever.
Sure.
But so I mean, like, go ahead, Troll.
I was gonna say if there was anything that you could do differently to your career now, or like if you could jump ship to a new career, what would it be?
One that pays more.
One that pays more? Anything that just pays more?
At this point, I know that I'm never gonna be an art teacher at this point because I can't support my family on it. So right. And I'm not willing to go to grad school. I'm gonna be paying off my loans as of this next month. So
oh man, yeah, you don't want a fresh pair of loans.
No.
Ooh, fresh loans, baby.
I spent 11 years paying these ones off.
Yeah.
So I would probably go into like, so my wife is in pharma, and she said that I could use my experience to train people on like clinical trial studies and like how to use the things and make training documents and like train the people running the studies how to run a training and run a study and stuff like that. And I mean, like, yeah, I could see that. I just need to have a lot more development in that.
So let me ask you this: let's say you found a job, like some job that paid 2 to 3 times as much as you make right now. Are there any jobs that you wouldn't do just because you dislike the job that much? Like besides stupid stuff like I wouldn't kick animals for that much, like real jobs. Are there any jobs that just on principle you would not do for 2 to 3 times as much as you currently make?
I kick an animal for $3 million. No.
Double deal. Anyway.
I mean, like, if it's too far outside my interest, I won't do it. But I don't know what that is, right?
Okay.
Like, or like fair. A job that would be, I guess, put me in danger or risk my health.
Okay.
Probably not worth it. I wouldn't mind traveling more, but I don't want to travel like most of my job. You know what I mean? Like, something that like I'd go out somewhere once or twice a year would be fine, but like I wouldn't want to be on the road. Like there's some trainers within my company that are like regional trainers, so that they go all over the region.
Yeah.
So like, and by region I mean like within 6 states.
Yeah,
And
if you're
like,
never home,
no
that would
thanks.
work for me personally. But
Yeah, I wouldn't like a remote gig. I do like after 2020, this working from home gig is awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
it is nice.
I want that to keep happening. And in fact, that it's when we just got extended all the way out to June of working from home.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I know. And then when that time comes, I'm already ready to like double down on like with my boss and be like, this has to happen, or I might be starting to look somewhere else.
Right, like here's the thing, you by that point you had been doing it for a year, a bit over a year even. Like you know what you're doing, they know that you can stay productive. Just let you keep doing it. Like if people want to come back and it's safe, like from a world health standpoint, let them. But make it up to the worker, like what they want to do. Like if they don't, if they have a preference, you know.
Yeah, that's what I would like at least. But we'll see what happens.
Yep.
Wombat's gonna be an ice road trucker, dude. That show's awesome. I'd watch Wombat being on there. He's already got the beard for it. You'd get like all those like icicles hanging from it.
Right. I mean, that violates rules 2 and 3 of my perfect job, but like dangerous and on the road. No thanks. But like, yeah. I mean, how much do those pay? Like tons, right?
I think so. Yeah. Because you're basically putting your life on the line.
Right. That's why I never even like pursued like further into like criminal justice. Like security is probably as far as I'd go with that. I'd never want to be a cop, for sure.
Yep.
Oh man, I would not want to be a cop.
The closest I'd want to get to that is like a dispatch job, but I've worked dispatch and it is not what I want to do. For sure, like just being on alert the whole time, it just degrades your mental health. It really does. Right. And like how you are social. Like when I was a dispatcher, like my social skills got so bad because basically every single conversation I had with somebody was like scrutinizing the conversation, right? Mm-hmm. It made me like socially anxious and like a lot less extroverted. It helped balance me out a little bit because I was super extroverted back in the day, but it was rough. But
sometimes it takes a special breed to do stuff like that too. You kind of want to be able to like be the person that's always jumping in, saving the day type thing. Maybe you get off on that. I don't, but then it goes too far too. Like people get like start looking for it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like or create their own emergencies. Like think of how many firemen are also arsonists. Yeah, true.
Have you ever seen that? Like,
I haven't.
It's a thing.
I've heard of
they're
like
called
maybe
fire
one of those
starters or I forget what they're called. But like
investigative discovery shows. I think that there's been a couple on there that have been ex-firefighters that started a fire just so they could put out the fire and be heroes type thing.
Yep, I've had that happen at my work, like where employees have like started a fire to put it out so that they'd get commended for it, and then got caught.
Well, look at Kirby. He like goes and finds things just to go into the microscope just so he can look at small stuff.
That's exactly what I do. I'm like, what would be cool? I've done that bee. I've done mosquitoes. I'm gonna do these tarantula molts. I've done needles and coins. For anything I'm like, that would be called salt. Like, what does it look like? Let me see it. And I have an excuse. I'm gonna do it.
I think you should throw the front cover of Dark Souls 2 underneath there to see if you can see anything.
Like, find pure jank. Like, what does microscopic jank look like?
Yeah.
They logo. They hid pictures of Craig in every atom.
Craig's in there.
He's in there. He's in there.
You guys mentioned what you wanted to be when you were like young. I never said mine. So I originally wanted to be a paleontologist. The first job I ever wanted to do was be a paleontologist. And then it was an art teacher. And
when did it change from paleontologist to art teacher then?
Like middle school.
Okay.
Once he grew out of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like, paleontology still would be really cool, but like, that would be like a lot of travel and stuff like that. And like, obviously, right now, like, there's no way. Like I would have had to start that track a long time ago. But I don't know. I just always liked art. I liked the elements of teaching, and I've always wanted to be in that role in some way, shape, or form. At one point, I really liked chemistry so much in high school that I thought about changing my trajectory to chemistry, but I never got too far with that. So
Chemistry.
I love, as I've said to Kirby a couple times, and he's been like, oh, "Wait, what?" I loved balancing equations and
That's
stuff
like the
like
most
that.
boring. That's like the worst part. You
No,
like.
I loved everything about it, or like about chemistry, including like balancing equations, like solving those problems. But like, obviously, that wasn't my favorite part. But I didn't. The only thing that turned me off was the teacher, unfortunately. So.
It happens sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They just ruin a subject for you.
So, is there any questions that the chat has for us, or that you guys have for each other? Like,
I think I asked most of mine during it, but I'll think real quick.
If you could go into a different career field right now, what would you do, Kirby?
Okay, let me answer that two ways. If like one, because I really like what I do. I don't know if this counts. I think this is like a cheap answer, but if I would move from formally chemistry to formally materials science, because I ended up liking materials characterization more than hard chemistry. But let's say I don't do science. It's a good question. What I like enough. I'm gonna have to come back to you on that. What do I like enough that isn't science?
For a professional bicep building athlete.
Yeah, I just do curls all day. I only do curls forever. I think, no joke, like, God, I don't know how dangerous being an actual detective is, but being a detective sounds like it would be fun.
In theory, yeah, I
Right,
would
but I
probably
think
agree.
it wouldn't actually be. But it seems like it could in my
You've
head.
been
be fun,
watching
but it
too much
probably would not
Detroit,
be.
or you've been playing too much Detroit, right?
I haven't played Detroit in a while. I've been playing Danganronpa, but maybe that's why.
Oh, okay. Have you ever played LA Noire?
No, that's on my backlog. I've not played Illinois
Oh,
yet.
man, you should play that game. That game's so good.
Is it actually good or is it janky good?
I really enjoyed that game. It's a
Okay.
Rockstar game, so it has like the same engine as like GTA, but it's just more scoped in. Like you're not running around like flying F-15s and killing people. And
Matt just says janky. It's super janky.
it's super janky now. I played it on the 360 where it was like 4 discs.
Oh my god.
28 stab wounds.
I love that. I mean, I'm still gonna keep it in my backlog. Like I already own it, so it's not gonna change anything. But
Oh, it didn't age well and it's super janky. Revolutionary is see, I played it back in the day. That's how I felt about Bioshock though. Like Bioshock, I was like, I played it and I was like, what was the big hubbub about this game? Maybe I just played it dated.
I liked Bioshock. I still do.
I really did too. Same.
I liked it, but I just don't see what the big. It kind of like maybe you, Kirby, when you played Halo, you're like, what's the big hype?
Right?
You know?
Yeah, I feel you there. Because I played Bioshock like right when it came out, so maybe it was that was part of it.
Yeah. I just don't. I'm like, I don't see what it offers that other games don't already have. I'm like,
My field, I'd probably go into game design. Like, if I had started early with coding, like, I'd probably understand what Charles was talking about half the time, but... and then, like, if I knew how to code and do art, maybe I could actually make something of it. But
right. You can. Matt's got a good point. You can start coding anytime. You just got.
I know, and that's why I made that instead of saying something like paleontology, because like, paleontology, like starting now would be like stupid. You know.
Tro, what are you swapping over to?
I would definitely swap to. So like when I started out in coding, and maybe I didn't touch on this. But I was like, oh man, I would love to make video games, and that's something that I felt
Isn't
like
that still coding though? That you got to choose a different field.
It's yeah, well, it's a different breed of coding. Like so,
I'd say it's fair. Yeah.
Like this really smart guy that I work with, and and actually, in my career field, I've been fortunate enough to work with some really smart guys, and they've helped me really get a good understanding on things, or even just help me career wise. But he said something once, and I'll never forget it, because he said, like, like there's only like a lot of people play like basketball, but only like a certain number actually play it professionally, type things like that, and make money off of it and stuff. And it's the same thing with game development. Like, it's such a highly sought after job that everyone can make it. Everyone can play video games. Everyone can go out and make video games. Like, look at, you just download the Unity or the Unreal Engine, and you can just start making something. But only a select number of people, the really good ones, will actually be getting paid to do it and do it as professional. So like, I mean, like, and we all know amongst ourselves that we've been like kind of BSing with Unity and stuff like that, and just seeing what we can do. I would love to be able to do that, but I feel like you need to, one, have a better understanding of physics. You need to be able to, like, because I mean, I'm working on my own like game or whatever, but like it's like, it's eye opening to see how much artwork you actually put into a video game. And that's probably one of the things that holds me back, because I'm not an artist. I mean, I can code it all day, but it's going to look like crap at the end of the day unless it has good artwork. So it's one of those things that you just have to, I'm trying to like teach myself more art stuff, And actually, I had a really good art teacher back in high school who, I wish I had pictures of some of the stuff, but I'm actually like in different media formats or whatever, or materials, I guess. What would be the name for it? Like,
Media, yeah.
Media, yeah. I actually came up with some pretty decent artwork. So he helped make me learn a lot of stuff, like, like stuff that I never even knew about, like, negative space and stuff like that. And it was just like, oh wow, this is eye opening. Like, this is how, rather than when I went into that class, I was probably drawing stick figures. And then I took it in like my 12th grade year, because I was like, whatever, I just need to fill up the credits at this point, whatever. And all of a sudden I left that class with a better understanding, and I was like actually appreciative of art. I was like, this is cool. I feel like he was a great teacher. Going back to what you said about like how teachers can sometimes ruin things for you, he actually inspired me to look more into art and stuff like that.
That's so important.
It is.
So I do appreciate that, and that's why, like, sometimes, like, even with like Twitch and stuff like that, like the emotes, sometimes I'll be like, no, I want to do it, just because it's kind of fun sometimes and relaxing to just draw stuff. But yeah, I would do more video game design, and if I'm being forced to change out of like a different career field completely, because if you guys are classifying that as code, I would pick.
I think it's fine, but.
Man, what would I even pick?
Right? That's when I said no science, I was like, I don't know.
I know, it's hard to, like, sometimes you're like, what else is out there in life?
That's why recently I've been looking into finding a job hiring coach to like look at what I can do and say, oh, here are the things you could do with that. So that I can figure that out.
Would any of you do management? Because there's like a buttload of like middle management jobs out there and stuff like that. Or I hate
I do
management
now.
I guess that it technically is.
And I did it more like I've been supervisor, I've been a manager. I train managers on how to be managers because I've been a manager. But like, I don't know, like, I guess sure. I if the money was right and it was in something I was interested in or could be interested in, then sure. How about you, Kirby?
Being a cook, is that what you said, Kirby? That'd be kind of cool.
I was asking Tony. Well, Tony said easy for him. I was asking if he meant being a cook, because that's what his degree is in. But then he said no. So now I'm not going to guess, Tony. So if you tell me what it is, great. But I'm not going to sit here and guess what it is, because now I don't know. I'm trying to think, but like. Wait, you said what about me, Wombat? What was the question now? I got distracted by Tony.
Would you ever consider a management job?
I wouldn't want to, but like if that was the only thing available, sure. But like it would not be on the top of my list at all. How the fuck was I gonna guess trades anyway? I wasn't gonna guess that. Anyway, yeah, probably not. I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, like I've done supervisor roles in like the fast food industry and retail industry, and I've even done like managerial roles. I've gone and got like a a franchisee license in some fast food places and was assistant manager at eh, I I quite enjoy in my current job. Just the only person I manage is myself. Like I
Nice. Yep.
could do a management job, but I don't want to. I don't care about your problems or whatever. You do you, and I don't want to manage me.
Yeah.
It was. I'm glad I've actually done them, because when I have appreciation for it and I know that I can do it. Sometimes it's one of those things that you want to be like, could I do it? And you're like, yes, I could. Do I want to? No, I don't. Stock market trading? Is that what we're talking about?
That's what I'm trying to figure out if that's what he means.
Oof. I would not want to get into
that.
I would not want that.
But
So, I mean, like, I interacted with that a lot when I was at Vanguard Investments. I don't know, like, a lot of it's on the phone, right? So, like, I wouldn't mind working from home and doing that. Maybe, like, coaching people on investments if I knew about it. But, because, like, that's kind of, like, a lot of stock stuff is, like, 401k stuff. So...
yeah.
I don't know. I there's, as I said, like, there's not much I wouldn't do as long as I could do my own thing as well on top of it. You know what I mean? Like I do security, but like I have my own stuff that I do on my own. Like if I could do the stuff that I like to do for fun as like a job, that would be awesome. But like none of the stuff I like to do is something I really get paid much for, right? So I just kind of, it's like the survival mode in me is like find something that I can tolerate and then be passionate about something else as well on top of it.
Neither of you mentioned, I guess none of us mentioned streaming as a full-time job or whatever.
I would never do it. It would make me hate video games.
Really?
Like, I don't want to sit and play one game or like to
Doesn't
make
have
it a
to be
living.
one game.
Well, most of the time it seems like the streamers who get all the viewers are mostly one who plays one or two games or style games for a long ass time, and they rarely break out of that. And even if I didn't, I could play any game I want. I don't want to sit in front of my computer for like 8 hours at a time streaming and talking to chat. Like, no, I just want to play at my own pace. I would not want to do it. I think it would make me dislike video games.
How about you, Wombat?
If the people want it, sure. Like, as I said,
Do
like
you
if
want
it's something, I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think unless I had like nothing else going on in terms of job, like I probably wouldn't be able to do it because you got to be on all the time. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean.
Like,
I don't want to do that.
you have to be invested in like social media and Discord and like promote yourself and like that stuff I'm not good at, but like
It'd be tiring,
right,
to say the least.
If I got to that point, like I'd be making some changes in my life to make sure that worked, but like I don't see it as a realistic thing. So like there's pretty much any other job out there, it's like you can like apply and like people hire you, but like this is something like it's a self-started business, right? Yeah. So like that's like saying would you like make a crafting shop, or would you like
I wouldn't want to be
start a bakery.
That's like so much work, and it'd be so much stress, like getting off the ground. I don't think I could want to.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that. So like I do some contract work right now on an app for a buddy of mine that I used to work with, and he actually used to work for a place in Vegas. He moved out here, and then he was so good at his job in Vegas that they like just threw money at him to make him work remotely for this place, and then he ended up leaving that place to work for his wife's startup company, because she makes like a bunch of like materials and stuff like that she puts out, and it's like for realtors and stuff like that she like a bunch of advertisement print and stuff like that she does, and then like they make so much through that he was able to just kind of support her on that. And then also he was doing that and his Vegas job at the same time, but then he doubled down on this new app that's getting a lot of popularity and stuff like that. And it's just like he seems like he's always creating like these new like things, and it's always like self-starting ideas. And I'm like, I don't know how you have the energy for this. Like, dude, it'd be so stressful, just like your own business type thing. And I don't know. And no, I feel like I've been in, like, the company I'm in now is a Fortune 500 company, and I've done that, and then I've also done startup companies here in town, and it's just like I like the secure feeling of a like well-founded company, even though they sometimes are slow as molasses and they're not as innovative as a startup, but it's just more secure. I don't feel like I'm going to lose my job the next day or something.
Yeah. So looking at the time, I know, Kirby, you got to go, right?
I do. I was gonna bring that up when there was the next opening. Yeah, I got a dumb meeting.
Yay! Your work makes you work on the weekends.
I mean,
So salty.
mine does too sometimes, but
Yeah, so same here.
Yeah, it's whatever. But whatever. At least I'm the one presenting, because like when other people present, it's supposed to be like 30 minutes, and these guys go on for like 45 to 50 minutes. I'm like, why are you still talking? So at least now I can know it will be the exact length that I want it to be. It'll be great.
that's true.
Anyway, yeah, I gotta head out because that meeting's like 3 minutes. So
Before we transpire into another tangent,
Yup.
let's also make our allotted time. So, guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking with us after our long hiatus. Hopefully, we'll be back in 2 weeks. But if not, have a great rest of your Thanksgiving break and whatever, maybe a weekend if you're, in another country or whatever. But thanks for joining us, and thanks for learning about our lives a little bit more. Bye.
See you guys.
bye, everyone.